Hello, everyone. I'm Margarita Kiwis, Executive Director of the Peace Innovation Lab at Stanford, and I will be hosting today's panel on protecting people. My first guest, my first panelist, is the Right Honorable Patricia Scotland, Queen's Counsel. The Baroness Scotland is noted as the first woman in more than the 700-year history of the office to serve as Her Majesty's Attorney General for England and Wales and for Northern Ireland. And with her responsibilities, part of her portfolio is responsibility for gender equality, domestic violence, forced marriage, international child abduction, and promoting diversity and equality of opportunity, particularly for women and girls. Thank you, Baroness Scotland, for being on this panel. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Liv Torres. She is the Director of Pathfinders for Peaceful, Just, and Inclusive Societies, hosted by the Center on International Cooperation at New York University. And then our third panelist is Natalie Deacon, and Natalie is the Head of Sustainability for Avon. And she's focused on igniting Avon's purpose throughout and beyond the organization. She's responsible for overseeing Avon's sustainability goals to create positive environmental and social impact. Thank you so much. I am thrilled to have three very powerful and dynamic women on this panel. So I'm going to start with the Right Honorable Patricia Scotland. What will be the impact on reducing violence when we see a world of true gender equality, with economic empowerment for women and women properly represented in positions of leadership the way the three of you are today?
I think we will see that we have an opportunity to save lives and livelihoods. And there's never been a more important moment to do that than right now. As Secretary General of the Commonwealth, I am responsible and relate to 54 countries. That's 2.5 billion people, 50% of whom are women and 60% of whom are under the age of 30. During this terrible pandemic, where we've seen more than 200 million people's lives affected, and we've had more than 4.5 million deaths, we've also seen a wicked hidden pandemic, and that is domestic violence. We've got 1 in 3 women and girls in our world affected by domestic violence. It's costing us a fortune. Way back in 2016, the estimate was $1.5 billion were being wasted in economic consequences of this domestic violence. And we've got an opportunity to change that. We have worked together for a long time. I've spent the last 40 plus years on this subject, and we know what we can do. We launched yesterday a further part of our Commonwealth Says No More campaign to end violence against women and girls and sexual violence with our Join the Chorus campaign. And I hope everyone is going to join the chorus. And we've also launched the idea that we're going to have a SDG 5 toolkit. So this is about implementation, but it will take all of us. And if we want change, if we want justice, if we want human rights for everyone, then we have to have human rights for women. And whilst 50% of the Commonwealth and 50% of our world, just over 50% of our world were female, if we're not able to get their talent, their ingenuity and their power released in a way that will benefit the world, we're going to be really, really disadvantaged. So I think we found the way to do it. It's going to take all of us, but look who we've got on this call. We're all saying, not in my name, and we are going to be the difference we want to see in the world.
Bravo. Thank you so much. And thank you for pointing out that peace is actually an excellent investment. There's a huge ROI for peace, and especially a huge ROI for gender equality. And so it's not just a matter of it's doing the right thing. It makes bloody economic sense as well. Liv, COVID-19 has accentuated many forms of violence. In the rebuilding process, we face a turning point. We have to act fast or risk a brutal future of escalating violence, conflict, and human rights violations. How can we ensure that the world is working together to achieve the ambitious goal of having global violence by 2030?
Thank you. Well, let me first say that I'm very honored and happy to be part of this great panel. Women leaders taking leadership on peace issues, crucially important. Now, how are we going to ensure that world leaders and countries work together? It's going to take a lot of ambition, leadership, and a lot of energy and guts, I think, much more than what we see today. Now, if I may just take half a step back, what have we seen over the past decades? We've seen inequality growing. We've seen injustice growing. A couple of years back, the Task Force on Justice documented that 5 billion people are without sufficient access to justice. Now, the injustice and inequality has also impacted on polarization. There's anger growing out there. Social unrest has been increasing. All of this triggers also for violence. Now, it's going to take a lot to get us back on track. The UN member states agreed to significantly reduce violence with the Sustainable Development Goals. We are far off track when it comes to the 2030 goals that were set. So we are very happy and proud from the Pathfinder side to launch the task force on halving global violence today on Peace Day, chaired by Costa Rica, Liberia, South Africa, Switzerland, and with key thinkers and experienced people from think tanks, the UN organizations, all focusing on building a movement to halve global violence by 2030. And we are saying halving global violence because we think point number one, it's important to have a concrete goal, and we think this is the first stepping stone to reduce and eliminate violence altogether. Concrete goals, and we are focusing on solutions in order to find ways to eliminate violence. Now, the UN Secretary General has said in the common agenda that we need new thinking. We need a new agenda for peace building, and we believe that this focus on finding solutions, exchanging experiences, building a movement in order to actually keep a focus on the target. We want to reduce violence, urban violence, domestic violence, etc. That is a movement that can take us forward. So I'm happy to be here today and very happy that we are launching the task force with the statement out also, setting the path for a better future.
Thank you so much. Natalie, representing, the role of corporations and what business can do, what is the role of the corporate sector in protecting women, safeguarding them from gender-based violence, and helping them gain financial independence?
Thanks, Margarita. Really pleased to be here today with such an audacious group of women. So I'm pleased to have the opportunity to discuss this today. And if I'm representing the corporate sector today, I would say first and foremost, business is a force for good and has got a really crucial role to play in tackling some of these burning issues facing the world right now, both people and planet. When it comes to violence, and specifically gender-based violence, more violence takes place in our homes, in our schools, in our workplaces than it does on the front line. So whilst Avon is geared around supporting the issues that matter to women, our business model is about empowering women, actually taking a step back from that, us in the corporate sector can do a lot to tackle this. Firstly, we know that gender violence is rooted in gender inequality. It stems from that. So the more that we can all do to promote women in our workplace, to promote gender equality, we're already 50% representation in our senior leadership in Avon, but we know that we can do more. We know we can do more on inclusion generally, and we would encourage others to join us in going for that 50-50 balance. I also think you cannot underestimate the importance of promoting a culture of inclusion and tolerance. And as part of that, Avon, and I've seen a lot of other organisations do this, have a gender-based violence policy and a protocol, so that if anybody in our organisation needs help, we have a network of ambassadors, we have a network of NGOs that we fund who can be there to help. You know, one of the most important things about this issue is raising awareness and having people know where to go to get help. And I think for Avon in particular, we have this network of millions of Avon representatives, beauty entrepreneurs. So there's something really important about moments today, about encouraging people to take a moment and speak out, to raise awareness of these issues. So we all have got the opportunity here and to become a network of peace ambassadors, to raise awareness, to signpost where to go to help. And it's all of those small individual actions that collectively are going to make the difference, are going to create change for the future.
Wonderful. I love that. No, it's incumbent on all of us to create peace in the world. And the simplest way that we do it is in the small interactions that we have with the people around us every day. And we spend most of our time in the workplace. So it's this huge opportunity to build peace in the workplace. I love this. My next question, and this is open to all of you, and I'll let you sit with the question. In the face of such enormous challenges globally, what can you hope to give people watching today how we can reduce violence and move towards more peaceful, just, and inclusive societies? And I want you to think about where progress is being made and who do we look for inspiration right now?
Well, I'd jump right in and say that one of the reasons we created Commonwealth Says No More was because we understood that many people were saying, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. So we created, for the first time ever, a portal which deals with everyone. What do governments do? What do business do? What do foundations do? What do individuals do? What can family members do? And that Commonwealth Says No More portal is vitally important, because I think, as we've said already, this starts with peace in our homes. If we don't have peace in our homes, we will never have peace in the world. And the great thing about the Commonwealth 54 is we represent the big countries, the small countries, the landlocked countries, the island states. And hopefully with our 54 showing and creating a pathway, it'll be an opportunity for all of us to follow it. The Commonwealth is totally committed to delivering all the Sustainable Development Goals, because it's in our charter. And what you see when you look at every single one of those SDGs is that women and girls and children are disadvantaged. They are a large percentage of the poor. They're the largest percentage of the people who aren't housed. They're the largest percentage of the people who don't get justice. So everything we do for women and girls, we do to deliver all those SDGs. And I think that this conversation we're having, look at how it's knitting together. All of us are banging the same drum, and we've just got to get louder. And I would be saying to all of you, please join the chorus, be the chorus. We've got these harmonious voices that we can make sure that people hear and listen to us. And I'm glad to be echoing what others on this wonderful panel have already said.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Let me jump in. I totally agree. I think we need to get louder. We need to get more gutsy. We need to get tougher, more energetic. Look, when we look back at the last 2 years, we've seen that the pandemic has amplified the problems we had already with inequality and injustice. We've also seen over the past years that the solutions are there. It's not rocket science to figure out how to deal with violence and how to reduce violence. We know a lot of the solutions. And we have seen, and that's where I find the inspiration, we have seen cities reduce violence. Medellin in Colombia did it, Oakland's in the US, and there are others. We've seen individuals mobilizing, and we have seen civil society organizations mobilize. I find inspiration when I see a coalition like the Pathfinders of 40 countries plus civil society organizations mobilizing for peace, justice, and inclusion. I find inspiration when I see the leaders of the task force we are launching today stepping up, saying, we know the solutions. Let's mobilize to get more of the political will needed in order to actually implement and deliver. And I find inspiration when I see individuals all over the world who are stepping up to help their neighbors, solving conflicts with dialogue, setting up small organizations to help out. There's a lot of initiative out there. And yes, it's right. We need to be louder and get more on board this movement. But the people are there and the hope is there.
Natalie.
Thanks. I build on what Liv had said about this. We are in a moment in time right now. You know, we've heard the phrase "build back better" a lot for very good reason. And if we look at what happened over the last 18 months, we saw a huge rise in domestic violence as an unintended consequence of lockdown. We're seeing the figures go in the wrong direction, but at the same time, we're seeing a greater collective awareness and concern. And that's what really gives me hope that this is a moment. So we are seeing institutions, society, communities, business really coming together in a way that we haven't before to really focus on these issues. And it gives me hope that we can also break out of the echo chamber. I've been working in this area for many years, and one of the things that can happen is you find yourself in an echo chamber talking to people who care about the things that you care about. And what we need to do is break out beyond that. And the wonderful thing about an event like today, about Peace Day, is that it really gives us all a moment to mobilize, to speak out against violence, to share a hotline or a helpline with a friend, just to know that we need to be aware of this and conscious of it. So I think Baroness Scotland's absolutely right. People often, whether it's an individual or an organization, they just want to know what to do. And I think the great news is that there are lots and lots of resources, those we've talked about today, lots of helplines. Avon funds refuges and helplines across the world. So if anybody needs help, there are lots of places that they can go to. And I would love us to do more to work together to make sure we're reaching out beyond the echo chamber.
Yeah, it's what's been heartening for me, certainly in recent years, is seeing more women rise up, not just in leadership, but also just speaking up of what's not acceptable anymore. So the social norms of how women are treated are shifting rapidly because women are actually using their voices and saying, this is not okay. And men as allies also saying, this is not okay, at home, in the workplace, in relationships. And I'm thrilled to see all these tough, gutsy girls out there who are saying like, no, I'm not going to put up with that kind of behavior. I deserve to be treated with respect. And that is so inspiring, coming from another generation where we kind of put up and shut up with a lot of stuff. I think the other thing that's very important in this panel is for us to say that the way women are treated and domestic violence, that is violence, and peace is all about ending violence, and that includes gender. And probably the biggest conflict that we have on the planet in terms of violence isn't something that's happening in some country somewhere, but it's actually the violence against women. And if we can make positive change to reduce violence against women, we are creating more peace in the world. That's probably one of the most effective things that we can do, is to focus on gender violence, eliminate that. And when we do that, everyone is going to be so much happier. My last question for all of you in the time that we have left, So what can individuals do? So we've been talking about getting involved. Do you have like some targeted actions that individuals can take that someone listening to this panel can say, I'm gonna go out and do this? Is there a website? Is there discrete behaviors, something that you want people to do right now? If they, I'm the Monday morning girl in my lab and go, okay, great. If we're going to do something, what are we going to start doing on Monday morning? What do you want people to do tomorrow morning now that they've heard us talk?
Well, I think the first thing I want them to do today is next time you ask someone, how are you? Hang around, look them in the eye, and really listen to what they have to say, because many people say nobody asked. The second thing I want them to do is to join the chorus. This is a film that we launched yesterday. We need your voices. We've got some fantastic actresses and actors from across the Commonwealth. But we've also got our 54 leaders of the Commonwealth who committed themselves in 2018. So I'd say go onto our website, which is the.commonwealth.org. Look at the Commonwealth Says No More. Join us. Make your voice heard, and then take the material we've got there, and please, please use it. Be the difference we need to see in the world. And you can do this. We can all do it. And it can start not tomorrow. Can I just beg, let's do it now, today. Join the chorus and say no more.
Wonderful. Liv, what have you got for us?
Yeah, let me jump in. I think my key points are as follows. To those of you who are in leadership positions, make sure that you actually join the movement to halve and thereafter eliminate global violence. Reduce inequality, reduce injustice, and make sure that people have access to justice. That's going to be a major step in the right direction. And to everyone, I think my key point is this: whether you're in a leadership position or in any other position, make sure that you listen, that you promote dialogue, and to get away from the echo chambers that Natalie talked about. Make sure that you also talk to people and listen to people that you disagree with. What worries me deeply these days is we have a very polarized world where we mostly talk with people we agree with. Now make sure actually that you talk to people that you disagree with also, and promote dialogue with them, try and solve problems, and listen. We need to create or find back to the respect for dialogue and respect for disagreement. Remember that disagreements are actually the core of the democracies that we want to promote. So disagreements are good, but we need to listen, we need to talk, and we need to get better at promoting dialogue. So join the movement to halve and eliminate global violence, and make sure that you do everything you can every day in order to promote dialogue and respect disagreement, I think are my key points.
Wonderful. Natalie.
This is such an important point, isn't it, about tolerance and inclusion of perspectives that are different to your own. I'm so pleased that Liv brought that up today, because it's so important that we learn how to disagree, that we reach out to people who aren't like us in whatever way that might be. And I think that inclusion, that diversity and plurality of thought and perspective is hugely important if we're going to create a more peaceful, more inclusive community, a more peaceful, more inclusive world. In terms of what we can do, I would say firstly from a business perspective, I would encourage others to look at creating policies and protocols to support people around gender-based violence. Our policy is open source, anybody can take it, and it's really about helping people know where to go to get help and to commit to support those people. So that's what I'd say from a business perspective. For individuals, I would take inspiration from the Secretary General and say, peace starts at home, peace starts with us today. And that is as simple as going onto your social media platforms and sharing a message of peace. It can be as simple as looking out for friends and family and making sure that you know where you would go to for help. You know, at Avon, we've got a network of NGOs, charities that provide hotlines and refuge services across the world. And yeah, if you know anybody who you think needs help, or even if you're not sure what signs to look for, then there's places like that you can go to get help. But really, this is about speaking out together. It's about each individual making a small change or taking an action to change the world and make the world more peaceful through a collective effort.
Wonderful. I was looking at a research paper recently, being the academic that I am, and it was talking about how you may not be aware of the impact that you actually have, the influence and power that you have in everyday life, because we think you need to be a head of state or you need to be a famous person to make a difference in the world. And in this study, they noticed that when you notice something positive about someone and you tell them something positive about them, it lifts them up so much. And it could be noticing how kind they are to someone, or some talent or ability that they have. But the fact that you see it and you say something can have this huge impact in their life, and you will never know. And so for me, the call to action is to look and find the good things in the world and the good things that people are doing, and to tell them that you noticed, that you saw what they did. You saw the goodness in them. You saw the act of kindness that they did, and let them know. Because so often the feedback that we get is critical. We feel like we fall short, that we're not enough. And what we don't hear enough of is how wonderful we all are. And I think if we could change the conversation where we start pointing out how wonderful everyone is, then that elevates them, and they start saying, oh, I'm the type of person who does this. I'm the type of person who promotes women. I'm the type of person who listens. I'm the type of person who is generous, that is kind, that is looking out for the other person. And that we can reinforce that just by noticing. So I would want to put that out there as well. We have a few more minutes. So I just want to open it up and say, are there any closing remarks that you want to make? Is there something that someone said that triggered a thought that you wanted to put out there? Let me know in the last 4 minutes that we have. Go ahead, Liv.
Let me just jump in, because I think we're talking about the subject, which violence, which is massive. We see the triggers out there, inequality, injustice. We see the anger and polarization. And I'm not going to repeat everything that has been said before, but we know the magnitude of the problem, and we know the solutions. We know how smart it is to invest in fixing this. Now, we need political will, and we need to mobilize. So it's not really, and I'd like to just repeat this point, this is not rocket science. It's stupid not to address this. So let's just join hands and do this, because we can, we know what to do, and we can fix the problems. I just end up with that.
I think, Liv, you're so right on that. And so often people think this is just about people making the moral case. And I think what we've done today is to make not only the moral case, but the economic case. When it's costing the world $12 trillion annually in violence against women and girls, just think about what we could do with that $12 trillion to deliver the SDGs. So it's smart to do this. It's not only right and just, but also it's a denial of human rights, and justice really counts. And so I just want to say that we also have an opportunity to equalize the law. And you'll know that's one of the other things that the Commonwealth Secretariat are doing with the UN, with Antonio, we're doing that, but also that we're engaging with the WHO, all of us, but it's at every level. And I'm so glad we've got Avon and business, because it's absolutely right what was said. Doing good is good for business. It makes good sense. And the more we do good, the healthier we are, the happier we are, the kinder the world is, the richer we will be in every sense of the word. So business, I want to just give a big shout out, a big applause to Avon and those like Avon who are in the fight with us.
Fantastic. And with that, Secretary General, I think you had the last word. The smart money invests in peace.
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement. And we all have, we all want to have a good return on investment, and we all want to have a better world. And so what I love about this is that we can have both. We can have the world that we want to live in, and it's smart money. Yes. Thank you so much for this panel. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. And we're on to the next panel.